Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast with web's #1 source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between, including Arlington, Texas, where this evening the Red Sox added 2 more players, I guess not officially yet, but let's face it, more or less officially. Maybe Judge Fabian told us not to assume it, but at any rate, probably added 2 top talents to the farm system through the MLB draft. That would be Texas A&amp, both from the state of Texas, from colleges in the Lone Star State, that being outfielder Braden Montgomery from the Texas A&M, and left-hander Payton Tolle from Texas Christian University. Thank you all for downloading and listening to the episode. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of SoxProspects.com. I'm joined, as always, by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, it is our quick, and hopefully I do mean quick turnaround, short update after day 1 of the MLB draft reaction not emergency podcast, because we knew it was coming, but
favorite podcast.
The podcast horn was waiting to be sounded, so it wasn't out of nowhere, but it has been sounded. Let me just ask you this: where are you at, kind of big picture wise, with the way the night unfolded for the Red Sox? I know how I feel, but I'll let you have the first shot at it.
So I think it's kind of 2 separate takeaways. Number 1 is they did it again, in the sense that they just kind of waited and a top guy fell to them and they were willing to take it.
Somewhere someone is doing he can't keep getting away with this gif.
I mean, it's the 3rd straight year this kind of situation has happened, and I think is it 3rd straight? Yeah, Marcelo.
21 right? Was not. It's 22 in the middle.
Yeah, you're right.
3rd time in the last 4 years.
3rd time in the last 4 years. But with Marcelo and then, Kyle Teal and now Braden Montgomery I'll be honest, I didn't really prep for him as a potential option for the Red Sox.
This is why I don't prep anymore. This is why I don't, because there's no point. I
was like pretty well versed on Cam Smith, who went 14th, or I think 14th to the Cubs, 13th. To the
14th. No, 14th. I thought they were 11 for some reason. Yeah, that's on me. 14th.
I was well prepped on him. I was prepped on Connor Griffin, who went 9th. Pretty much everyone we talked about in our preview episode.
You savage.
For the most part, you savage. I understand why they didn't take him.
You savage falling to 20 was weird, but anyway,
I'll just say that's telling. There's a reason he fell to 20, and anyone, like, if the Red Sox didn't take him for anyway.
Yeah.
But I think Braden Montgomery is a home run pick for them. I mean, we say it over and over again. This is why you don't predict for position in the draft. You take the best player available in the 1st round, and you go from there.
Yep.
And then in the 2nd round, I had a feeling after they took a bat with the 1st round, they'd come back with a pitcher. And
same. I mean, I said in the chat with you and the guys, I said like 70-30, they take a pitcher here.
Yeah. And
based on who was available in part 2.
If you look at the Montgomery pick, they likely weren't going to be able to go over slot, which eliminated pretty much all the high school pitchers who had fallen that far.
Mm-hmm.
So you were looking at a college pitcher, and they took a guy who has an outlier pitch in his fastball, and it's a funky delivery.
Totally. Yeah.
He's got crazy extension. Like, there's a lot of traits that teams look for, especially the Red Sox. And he checks a lot of boxes that they look for in a pitching prospect. And so I really like the fit there, and I'm excited to see what the pitching development staff can kind of get out of him, because he is a little bit of kind of like a ball of clay. There's this one elite trait, or, a couple between his fastball and his extension.
Yep.
And the low release height. There's a couple of things to work with. And then the secondaries, the command, that stuff's a work in progress. But as I think they've shown with the guys in the system this year, those are things that you can really teach up and work on and coach, and, get him in the lab, get him with the high speed cameras, work on his pitch shape, optimize delivery, spin, et cetera. Like, there's a lot to like here with a guy with that frame. So I'm really happy with what they did with their first 2 picks today.
Yeah, I think I am too. I mean, to me, the big takeaway is that Montgomery fell. I'm with you on that. I think that's the headline.
Yeah.
That's by far the headline. No matter what else happens in this draft, that's the headline, that they got the elite, well, not elite, but like one of the guys in that top 10.
I mean, I think Keith Law had him 4th in his draft rankings, and then most of the other places were like 7, 8, 9. So to get that guy at 12 is really impressive.
It seemed like he was destined to go to the A's at 4 before he broke his ankle.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is,
linked with them.
Yeah, he had that injury, and so he
that's why he
done
fell.
workouts. Like, Well, but this is the thing that's funny about the MLB draft is people are like, oh, but he fell. And it's like, you can fall for reasons that are completely entirely out of your control. Like Kyle T last year
Yeah.
didn't deserve to fall in talent. He fell because only one other team was looking at a catcher in the first round and they went with the high school kid. Like that's
Yeah.
why he fell last year.
Well,
And so,
the teams are scouting guys and they're working with guys. And when someone quote unquote falls, this is something I remember talking to Paul Taboni about, whether it was like on the podcast or just, on the side of like, you build process with a guy,
yeah,
right? You see him play, you talk to him, you talk to the family, and you don't just do that the year that you draft them. Like you got to be ready to go if they become available. And like, you know, if the guy falls to you that didn't expect to fall to you, you got to have that scouting process with them. And that was something that I always want to call him Devin Pearson. Devin Benson is a Red Sox PR guy that sent a media relations guy. So whenever I see Devin Benson, I think Devin Pearson and vice versa. But he was saying tonight with Montgomery, like Danny Watkins loved him in high school in Mississippi, loved the tool set, loved the kid. He went to Stanford and had success there, and then at Texas A&M there this year. Lee Bryant, who's their scout for that part of Texas, got to see him a lot and loved him. This wasn't like this year they discovered Braden Montgomery. Like they had scouted him for years. They had years of data they could call upon. And when they had the opportunity to pick him there, they had process built up on him to make an educated decision. It wasn't like they were like, oh, what's in this? It's not the, the Monty Hall game where you could have the box you picked or what's behind door number 3. Like they knew what was behind door number 3. So it's just good scouting process basically. And they said the same thing that they had history with Tolle. This year they got to know him a little better, but it wasn't like this year they discovered at TCU who Tolle was. So
yeah. Well, and that's the thing we talk about in the MLB draft is you have to be prepared for all outcomes. And that's why you build that repertoire. You have these, even if you're not necessarily on a guy and out of high school, you have to put your work in with them, do the background, do the makeup stuff, just in case. You never know what's going to happen 3 years from then in college. Sure. And, did anyone expect Montgomery to fall to the Red Sox? No, but all of a sudden Christian Moore goes 8th to the Angels, which is just a very Angels pick. Yeah. And then Seaver King goes 10th to the Nationals. And all of a sudden,
as soon as that happens, it's chaos.
That pushes someone down. And that person happened to be Montgomery. The Red Sox were able to capitalize on that.
Yep, 100%. Let's talk about the individual players then, Ian. I guess let's start with Montgomery. Kind of a not necessarily a tooled up guy, but huge pop, huge.
I would call 270 plus tools pretty tooled up.
Well, he's okay. Yeah. He's tooled up. I just mean it's not like he's a potential 5-tool guy out of the box, right? Like this isn't a guy that like has no holes in his game type.
There's warts. Like I can also see a little bit why he fell. Like if we're going to get nitpick here, there's some swing and miss in his game. He's not going to be at a premium defensive position. He might not be a switch hitter, or at least he's going to have he's going to have some sort of platoon splits if he does, like little things like that. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a guy with like plus power and a plus arm, and maybe that might be light on the arm side of things. Like, yeah. You give me those two tools in a corner outfield spot.
I'm down. I'll take it.
Like in the swing, I watched a lot of video of him since the draft. Chris Clegg had some great video from when he visited South Carolina this year, and for power, it's like actually a pretty easy swing. Like there's not a lot. Yeah. It's not, he's not one of these guys with a massive hitch or like, a huge leg kick.
Just get some nice
torque. He's just got good bats. He's got good bat speed, like really good EVs. His in zone contact this year was like 85% or so. So he makes a ton of contact on pitches on the zone. There's a little bit of chase against secondaries, but that's something you can work on, kind of improve in the when you're in pro ball. And I think that
he hasn't mentioned elite swing decisions is one of the things that he mentioned.
Yeah, he walks a ton. I mean, I think he had 53 walks, 59 strikeouts this year. So he's going to get on base at a high rate, and the question is just going to be a hit tool. And the hit tool is the variance. That's where it's going to be, decide whether is this guy more of like a 6'7", like maybe a Hunter Renfroe type, or are we looking at someone who could be a middle of the order bat if he can get to like an average hit tool hit like 260. But he brings the type of impact that every team is looking for, and like his combination of impact ability at the plate with that elite arm strength gives him, it's a nice combo of tools that, I mean, when you look at the Red Sox system, like I don't know if they necessarily have a player kind of that fits the mold like he does. Like you have Anthony, obviously, but Anthony is left-handed only, so we're not talking about a switch hitter. And then, but you go beyond that, like Blaze is more like, I don't know if Blaze is going to get to the same power potential. You know, guys like you go further down, the next highest rated outfield is it really? It's Alan Castro, I guess. Like
Outfielders
Castro,
in the rankings.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just looking
It's
like
well Lugo. Yeah, it goes Lugo to Castro. I know.
I guess Nick York kind of,
And
but
it
like
depends on if you count Nick York, and
he,
then it goes
I
up to let's see, Cespedes isn't out there yet. I'm kidding. Yeah, Miguel Blaze. Yeah.
yeah. So like other than power, like other than Anthony, I'm not sure there's like they have that lot of guys in that top
No.
group that you're going to put sevens on the power. So
They don't even have like the Will Dalton types that like,
no, I mean,
are lower in the rankings, but they've got pop.
yeah,
Right.
because
Like, I mean,
like
I guess it depends on how you count. I mean, both Brian Gonzalez and Albert Feliz have more or less moved to first base.
yeah, and those guys have some big time pop. But yeah, no, it's a nice fit. I think. I know I understand he does hit left handed. Like he's better left handed. So a lot of people in my mentions at least were hoping for a right handed hitter, but. And this is something I said, and
Who
similarly to the people
cares?
who were
By the
complaining
time he
about not
makes
taking a
it,
pitcher. Well, that's the thing I said was like, by the time these guys, whoever you took, is going to make the majors, your needs are going to be completely different than what they are right now. So
yep.
in baseball, you don't draft for need, you draft the best player available. And that's exactly what the Red Sox did. And they should be applauded for that. Like they weren't trying, with the first round pick, you know, they went out and got a top 10 talent at number 12. And you can, like, there should be no complaints about that. Like that's a home run type selection. Obviously, now is the hard part, you know, getting him in the system, developing him, well, getting him healthy first, but then developing him and, you know, getting him to reach his potential. But as a starting point, they got the best possible player they could at that spot. And that's, you know, all you can ask for really in the draft.
Yep. And by the way, just since you mentioned it, what's going to happen with these guys is they're going to go down to Fort Myers. The Red Sox have kind of an orientation program they run with guys that's both like, you know, the way you think of that when I say that, but there's also medicals that get run. They run them through their like sports science, like biomechanical, you know, cameras and programs and all kinds of stuff to see, you know, all their, you know, strength, things like that, find mechanical issues that they can work on. And these are things that they don't have yet for these guys. But anyway, getting back to Montgomery, two other things, including on top of what you mentioned, makeup wise, just everything you read about him seems like an 80 grade makeup type. Seems like a good kid. His interviews are terrific. You know, seems like an intelligent kid, which of course, I mean, he got in and played to play at Stanford. Like he's no dummy, right? But seems like a good kid from everything you hear. And I asked Devin about that on the call, and he said, you know, with Montgomery, when you're doing your background work on guys' makeup, when you know they transfer, you say, well, okay. He even actually said this. He was like, you know, you ask the old coach to see if there's some, you know, dirt you can dig up on a guy or something like that. And the Stanford coaches, even after he left, had nothing but great things to say about him, and called him like a special kid and things like that. And this is after he left their program early to go to Texas A&M, right? Which, so it's like that was big. The other thing with the ankle. So do you still have that quote from the interview he did, Ian, that you read me earlier? Do you still have that up? Or do you need me to vamp while you pull it back up? Because I've got other things I can say.
I have it. I have it.
Okay. What was it that he said?
So basically, he said he has another. This interview was conducted last week. It just went up today. He said that he has another check-in with the doctor in 2 weeks, and that'll be when he starts walking on his boot, doing rehab, and moving his foot for the first time. That's when things will get going. And basically, the hope is I'll be able to throw probably as soon as I start walking, and then I'll be able to hit in probably another month and a half. So, like doing the math on that, I don't think it's tough to imagine him playing for an affiliate this season,
especially because there's no FCL.
Yeah, so the FCL will be finished as of the end of July, or I think it's the end of July.
End of July, and, If even if the Red Sox affiliate makes it to the championship series, that can't extend past the 30th.
Yeah. So if you do the math, because the minor league season ends like the third or fourth week in September. I think it's the third week in September.
Yeah, but the thing too is it's just, it's
Yeah,
going to be, I mean, I guess for a guy like Montgomery, you would make room, right?
of
Like you would
course you would
throw,
make
you
room
would
for
throw
him.
someone on the dev list or something, but there's more involved than just getting him into an FCL game like you would have last year.
Yeah. And if he's not going to hit for a month and a half from now, and let's just say
That's
a month
asking a
even
lot.
for aggressive, that's like mid to late August. You can't, maybe he ramps up and can get in the last week of the season. I don't think you rush it with anything like this. Like,
Yeah.
with an ankle injury, a pretty substantial ankle injury. And I guess we should talk about that. So for those who don't know,
Yeah.
he broke his ankle in a
In the
super
super
regional
regional.
game on a slide in home plate. And obviously a devastating injury because Texas A&M was one of the best teams in the country. But yeah, he's still in a walking boot. He was on a scooter for mobility at times today. So it was definitely a substantial injury, and so he obviously hasn't really he'd been able to go through the pre-draft process the same way other guys have. So, but I think all indications are that it's something that can be fixed with rest and rehab now that they've done all the necessary procedures. So hopefully he can come back healthy to start next season because it's a really exciting player that I didn't think was going to be available. And I guess one other thing, and Devin,
Well,
they said he's not going to be a two-way guy, right? They've said that.
Braden or
Braden, because he pitched also.
he's not.
So
No, the two-way comment that Devin was asked about was
so he wasn't even asked about Braden because Braden threw like I think
96
4 innings this year or something. He threw 97, but he threw 4 innings this year, so
yeah.
I just wasn't sure. But
no, he's an outfielder. No, but the point I was going to make, because I did get this on Twitter a couple times, was the chances that, let me back up. Domestic reserve list, as we have said a number of times, is capped at 165 this year. Right now, the Red Sox are at 159. This week, Brian Mata is probably getting activated, which will send probably like Bailey Horn, I presume, back down to AAA. I can't imagine they DFA Mata when you've got like Horn on the roster. I think you just, see what you've got with Mata at least first. So I say that puts them at 160. Justin Reimer, whatever it is, he's on a rehab assignment. He's getting activated from the 60-day fairly soon, so call that 161. His rehab assignment will basically run through when the FCL ends, and then they'll activate him and send him to Salem. They're going to have to release roughly 15 or more guys, or like put guys on like long-term IL, which there are some pitchers they might wind up doing that with. But
even with the long-term IL, they only have a handful of spots left, right?
you can only have 15 guys in the 60-day. You can have as many as you want in the full season, but the thing is, full season is for like guys that get Tommy John, guys like Yohan Fran Garcia who tear their ACL, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a bunch of cuts coming this month. I got asked a bunch of times, since Montgomery is hurt, can you just put him right on the IL? If they put him on the 60-day IL, then they do not need to make room for him on the domestic reserve list. You would ask the question, well, like, does he need to go on the domestic reserve list first, then get deactivated? Kind of like that's how the 40-man roster works, right? You have to be on the 40-man roster before you can be put on the 60-day IL. So even if you're like calling someone up to put them on the 60, they have to have like if they wanted to call Brandon Walter up to put him on the MLB 60-day injured list, they would need to activate him to the 40 first, or activate him to the active roster first, I believe. So they would need to be at like 25, add him, put him on the IL, add someone else. Anyway, in this case with the domestic reserve list, like you can be over for like a day or two. It's not like a hard limit of 165. Like you can be at 167 for a day or two if there's like a reason you're trying to finagle things. So anyway, point being, they could just, sign him and put him right on the 60-day IL if they wanted, or even the full season. My guess is they wouldn't get permission to put him on the full season. It would probably be the 60-day given this where he's at with his rehab. But at any rate, it's possible. And I actually asked about that. Devin kind of, dodged it a little bit in the sense that he said he didn't want to commit. They're going to talk to him, see where he's at when he comes in, and go from there. I think he didn't want to commit to him not going on the 60, I think is the fair way to put it. Because it's like, who knows, maybe he comes in and they're like, he's just not ready. So we'll see. I would bet against him playing this year, but we'll see where it goes from there. Ian, let's talk a little bit about Payton Tolle. Um, just a big old donkey of a guy, 6'6", 250, big dude. Was a two-way player his first 2 years of college. He's another guy that transferred this year. He played at Wichita State for 2 years before transferring to TCU.
He was a legit two-way player too. Like he raked last year.
In 2023, he was a John Olerud two-way player of the year finalist, and that's like 5 guys.
He had 2023, he hit 311, 361, 538 with 13 home runs and 223 plate appearances.
Yeah, he's no slouch at the plate, but this year he did hit, all year, but not. I mean, he only got 55 at bats. And the way it looks, most of his at bats were in February into early March.
Yeah, it seems like they kind of just shelved it. As the season
looks like
went on.
They were just because at that point after March 5th, he was only hitting like 235. And so my guess is they were kind of like, look, dude, like you have a chance to do. And he wound up being like the Big 12 pitcher of the year. So I think they probably all got to put their heads together. Yeah, for the year he only hit 182, 303, 327. There's pop there, as you would expect from 6'6", 250. But I mean, 21 strikeouts and 55 at bats.
He's also only pitching, so I mean, who cares? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, they started he was starting the year as a two-way guy, and then they weaned him off the hitting part of it. Probably a conscientious decision. He wound up striking out 125 and 81 and a third. Like, yeah, batting average against below 200. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Focus on pitching. That works. So what do you got on Payton Tolle?
Tolle's an interesting one because, as we kind of alluded to earlier, he has a couple of just like insanely outlier traits. And the first one is his extension. He's somewhere between like 7
depending on your
4 inches and 7 feet 5 inches of extension, which is near the top of the Red Sox system. Like it's in the top 2 or 3. And
he would be behind Whitlock, but he's in the range with like Jacob Webb as the minor leaguer with the best extension to the plate.
And then he would be up there with like guys like Tyler Glasnow among the top 2 or 3 in all of MLB starters in extension. And he gets that from a 6'6" frame. So we're talking about a big boy there. And then the second thing is his fastball shape. He has a really low release point or release axis.
Release point. His release point is low. It is lower.
Its release height is I couldn't remember the correct.
Sure,
yes.
sure.
Its release height is extremely low. So he kind of comes from this low. I watched some video of it. He comes from this he starts obviously high because he's a big pitcher.
Which is weird because of how tall he is. You would expect the opposite.
Yeah, but then he drives way towards the plate and releases it from his average release height was 5.4 feet, where like average is around 6 feet. And that's for all pitchers, not guys who are 6'6". So when you're getting really close to the plate and releasing it really low angle or really low height, that's just really tough to pick up for hitters. And he threw his fastball 75% of the time this year, and he got a 27% whiff rate on pitches when it was in the zone. So this is a big fastball. And now you're wondering, oh, he's 6'6" with all these big swing and miss fastball. He must throw in like the mid to high 90s. Nope. His fastball is like 90 to low 90s, tops out at 96, but it's mostly, like 90 to 92, 90 to 93. And so if you're talking about a pitcher who can get that many generate that many swing and misses while throwing a pitch 75% of the time,
yeah,
I'm intrigued. Like that's a big time stuff plus pitch that's going to grade really well on models. Yeah. And it just jumps on hitters.
Yeah, he totally really seems like a guy who you get into the Breslow, Bailey, Willard pitching program, get him in the lab, and there's other reasons too that you're probably about to mention, but like the fastball shape is just so unique that gives them a trait to work with, right?
Yeah, and they've done and this is the thing that we've seen a lot with this year is they have a lot of guys that they've improved their fastball shape, or he already comes in with that baseline that's high, and when you have when you have a body like that, you can project that guy to add more velo. Like I would not be surprised at all. And we've seen it this year with certain guys that they've made pretty substantial velocity gains with. So I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in next year throwing like, 92 to 94. And then all of a sudden, if he's 92, 94, topping out at 97, now we're talking. Because when you compare his fastball shape to MLB guys, like there just aren't a lot of guys that are like him. There are guys like Cole Ragans and Matt Strom who have similar velocity, or excuse me, similar like shape profiles, but they don't have the extension he does. Or like a guy who does have the extension he does and has similar profiles as Grayson Rodriguez, but he doesn't have. Obviously, Rodriguez is way more velo. So it's just a really unique fastball. And we combine that with the delivery, the size, like there's a lot to work with there. But the reason he fell and the reason he was available in the second round, that's pretty much it that you can count on right now. He throws like a what did Devin say? Because Devin said, but like his
what Devin said on the call is slider, cutter, change curve, along with the fastball. But that's not what the pitch data says.
No, the pitch data has slider, changeup, curveball. So no cutter, but I wouldn't be surprised if he starts throwing a cutter. I said that to you, not knowing what Devin said earlier. He just strikes me as someone they'll teach a cutter to eventually. But his sliders is most used secondary pitch. He threw it like 25% of the time, little less last year. And it's more like a sweepy slider, like long horizontal break. But it's, doesn't have great feel for it. Still work in progress. But, it can get whiffs, especially playing off that fastball. That having a fastball like he does brings other pitches up with them. Changeup is a major work in progress. Like I'm looking at a start that TJ Stats, who does great work with pitch data on Twitter, tweeted out about from this year against Oklahoma on the 22nd of May. And he threw 7 changeups in that start. Like he just doesn't, it's just not a pitch he throws very much of. So he's going to have to really develop his secondary pitches, both a second pitch and a third pitch. Third pitch, if he wants to be a starter, second pitch, just to even be just for the bullpen role. But I think when you look at a guy with his fastball, like you bring that in, as you said, you get it in the lab, you get the high speed cameras going, you figure it out. You can kind of teach him some secondary pitches, especially if you think there's there's a potential for spin there with the way his arm works, which they must if they're taking a guy like that in the second round. So I think that I think there's potential here, a lot of untapped potential, especially now too, as he'll be focusing on pitching for the first time. Really, obviously, as you talked about, he was two-way player until this year. So I think it's a really interesting pick. And now it's just about, what is the pitching development staff going to do with him? Because there's a lot to like here. And in the second round, you're telling me that worst case, you got a guy who seems like he can at least be a middle relief type as a floor. Like there's a pretty high floor here because even as a reliever, if he has to throw his fastball 75% of the time, if it carries over, if it played like it did in college, you can still do that, like especially from the left side. So there seems like there's a reasonably high floor here, and then there's definitely could be some untapped potential to profile as a starter long term if he can develop, that secondary offerings and improve the command and control.
Yeah, the signing scout for him, Chris Riley, who actually I just realized just apparently left the Red Sox organization to take a job with West Virginia as their director of pitching and pitching personnel. So this is a guy that knows pitchers. He's the guy that signed, among others, Hunter Dobbins, others like Isaac Coffey, Caleb Bolden, I believe, as well. But this is, someone who they've relied on to evaluate pitchers previously. So, definitely saw something there. Apparently he was when Devin texted him to let him know, or called him to let him know that they were taking Tolle. So, when you're a scout and you kind of throw it all out there to get a guy picked, it's a good feeling for him, but it also means that, he's kind of put it on the line for him there. So, Tolle just seems very intriguing to me. It wasn't the same sort of feeling as getting Montgomery there, but it's like, yeah, that's fine. That's an interesting pick. And I know that some folks will see where he's ranked up by MLB and BA. They both had him in I think the high 70s.
No, in MLB, BA and ESPN had him between 82 and 88.
Okay.
Two of them had him 88, then one had him 82.
I think 72 was BP. It's not BP. Perfect game.
And then Keith Law had him though in the 45 range.
Yeah,
so,
and
where they took him. So.
And I think that goes to show when you get out of that top 20, I wouldn't even say the first round. I'd say first half-ish of the first round. After that, boards diverge wildly. And Devin, said that this was the top ranked guy on their board at that spot. He did say like, in working with Justin Willard and Andrew Bailey and Craig Breslow, that like what they've helped is help them to like be able to evaluate pitching better, continue to evaluate. And it's just like everyone working together. This isn't just the thing they do for pitching, right? They do that with the hitting guys. They do that with everyone in the organization, I'm sure. But, he did mention that it's not that there was like an edict to get pitching. It was just, when they do their evaluation, they evaluate guys in part based on what they're, hearing from guys like Willard and Bailey. So that would have helped with the evaluation here and just what they can do when they bring him in, what kind of coaching they can do with them, what they can do to help him find those optimal shapes for his pitches, which is something that Devin mentioned during the media availability. So should we get to the money question, Ian? I think that's anything else.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone. I think I'll just say that this year he had 125 strikeouts in 81 and a third innings. So he led the Big Ten in K9 and was, I think, 12th nationally in K9.
10 or 12.
What?
10 or 12.
12th, I believe, or 13.
Big 10 or Big 12. Sorry.
No, he led the Big 12.
I thought you said Big 10.
No, of course not. Jeez, don't ever question me about the Big Ten. TCU could never make it in the Big Ten. Get out of here with that. Then he was 12th or 13th nationally.
I'm gonna listen to that back.
Yeah.
But a lot of strikeouts per nine. That's a big number.
He misses a bunch of bats. His walk rate was also like over 10%. So there's that. And then I realized we didn't really talk about Montgomery's stats. So Montgomery this year, prior to his injury, he hit 322, 454, 733 slug with 27 home runs, 14 doubles. He's not really a runner, but that's a lot of extra base hits. And as I said, 53 walks, 59 strikeouts. So we're talking about a guy who has a knack for getting on base. So now
you don't need to hit. You don't need to run when you hit the ball over the fence. Put it that way.
Exactly. So shall we? Yeah. Rankings. I only got asked the question 500 times on Twitter.
I actually didn't get it.
That. I got a lot of them.
I don't know how. I always get it. I don't know why I didn't. I think we're in agreement on both of these guys roughly, apart from having talked it through. But for Montgomery, it seems like a 4 to 6 range. And we're saying the number ranges where if you go to the website right now and look at the rankings we have up there now, this is the range of those guys they would be in. If it's then lower later, because, you add Montgomery ahead of Tolle and that's going to push Tolle down one, right? So,
yeah.
Montgomery seems like he's in a tier with Miguel Blaze and Christian Campbell.
He's the top of the 45 tier, like in that. Because we had the 45 obviously extends below Campbell, but I would consider the tier of the top 45 guys to be Blaze, Campbell, and now Montgomery. And then
those are the guys that are going to be ranked in the top 100 or just outside of it. We would expect.
Correct. Yeah. They're probably guys who I would say are in the 60, 70. Well, after the draft, let's say 75 to 125, 150 range for prospects.
Yep.
Nationally, that is not just obviously within the system. Within the system, it's the big three, and then it's after that is where he slots in.
Yep.
And the thing they're going to be in a kind of a weird spot, I'm realizing, because he'll be the third top 20 prospect who probably isn't going to play again this year. I mean, almost certain. Well,
Perales and
Joanne. Fourth then. I was thinking Yohan Ferran too.
Yeah.
So fourth top 20 prospect and 3 of the top 10 who aren't going to play again this year. So that's kind of interesting.
Potentially. Same thing with Cespedes.
But that potentially it just creates an interesting thing for rankings where those 4 guys are kind of all the data we have is what we have, or everything we know is what we have already. So
right.
Something interesting I just thought of with that. But yeah, I would say 4 to 6 range. And I think reading what like the national outlets have said, I think all Kylie said he would be in the top
70s,
100.
70s.
I think Fangraphs said the same thing, like the 70s, 80s, back in the top 100 list. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely that's a pretty nice influx of talent right there with him.
Yep. 100%. As for Tolle, definitely top 20, I think seems fair. From there, it's just kind of, when you look at the guys we've got in the top 20 right now, he seems to fit more among the guys who are in that 15 to 18 range, or 15 to 19, whatever you want to call that range, of like Edinson Paulino, Elmer Rodriguez, Alan Castro, Yohan Fran Garcia, Blaze Jordan, maybe. I'd say definitely ahead of Wickelman, Gonzalez at 20. And part of it gets tough because everyone's lists are different, right? So
yeah, that's what I was saying. Is everyone's personal lists are different. Just thinking about him compared to other pitching prospects, I think that he falls in the camp with like Elmer Rodriguez, Wickelman, Gonzalez, Hunter Dobbins, Zach Penrod. They're kind of like together, and it's they're guys who have interesting trait but have substantial warts, and I think he kind of falls in that camp as we talked about. The fastball's legit, the extension's really good, low release height we really like. That's something that the Red Sox really have an emphasis on too. That's all good things. Secondary stuff, command, we'll see. Is he a starter? We'll see. That's kind of how I view all these guys. Like Elmer Rodriguez, as good as he's been this year, there's still questions about whether he can start. Wickelman Gonzalez is just having a terrible year.
Wickelman's, you almost have to take him out of a discussion like this just because of the rut.
He'll show flashes, but it's rough.
Yeah.
Dobbins has had a good year, but there's just not a lot of upside there. Penrod, same thing, especially Penrod because he's 27 already.
Well, he's hurt. He's been hurt.
Yeah, he's had, what is it, a shin injury or something?
Inflamed shin.
But I think that's kind of the range he falls in. So I mean, that's borderline. Has probably a good chance to be one of the top 5 pitching prospects in the system. So that's a pretty good outcome, I would say, for their second pick too.
Yep, I think so. So. We'll see what they do the rest of the draft tomorrow. Day 2, the Red Sox will have what?
Before we
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say just for bonuses. I don't really want to predict them.
But we can just generally say. So
the first round pick, 12th overall, comes with a slot of value of $5,484,000. Or $484,600, I guess, if we want to get detailed, which we do on this fine show. I would have to think Montgomery gets right around slot, or maybe even more than that, right?
Yeah, he's not going to get below slot. I think that's fair to say.
I mean, can we say that though? Like, I would have said that about
I'd be stunned.
But I would have said that about Kyle Teal last year, and he took under slot.
How much under slot?
600,000, which is not what I realized. I thought it was less than that. So like. I think he's probably right around slot, or as I said, more. But like, if he took $5 million, would that surprise me? Also, probably not. Like, it just all depends on where he was going to go if the Red Sox weren't going to take him.
That's true.
Like, that's what it comes down to in this situation. So
that's true. Yeah, because he did fall in part because of the injury and stuff like that.
So it's hard to say with these guys right now
because of the injury. Yeah, who knows? That's true.
So I was stunned. The Teal one, I forgot that he took that much under slot until I just looked. So
and then Tolle.
Tolle's pick value is 1.846.
I can't see him getting. Maybe you get him
1.5, 1.6.
That's
But I don't think it's.
Who knows? We have no idea. We're guessing.
Some people think, but But also, who knows? Yeah, that's.
We've also had guys in the past where, like, in this situation, maybe he gets like 2. Like, and we're just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you get 2? And it's like, well, it turned
out
again,
it all depends on him. Where was another team going to take him. So, but I just think it's good to have a reference of what the slot value for those picks were, what you're working from. And as I think you were going to say, so tomorrow rounds 3 through 10. The Red Sox next pick at 86 has a slot value of 878,000. Pick after that is 630,000 at 115 in the 4th round, and then the 5th round is 457,000 at 148.
Goes down.
So exactly. So they've got no extra picks this year, so we're just working with the baseline. But it's going to be another exciting day when we get 7 new prospects tomorrow, and then 8 new prospects, excuse me.
And then the third day on Tuesday is going to be picks 11 through 20. Draft is only 20 rounds now, so we will get full set of players at that point, after which there'll be some media availability with Devin. We'll wrap up. Probably won't be Tuesday night we record our next episode. Mike's in town, so I will not be around, but maybe like Wednesday or Thursday we'll record and we'll get an episode out to y'all. And we'll try and grab a guest to talk about the draft class with. May not be this week, but we'll get one on in the near future to talk about that with, who I'm sure, if it's who I'm thinking of, is going to want to get ahead of Alex Spear in terms of number of appearances. So.
The greatest rivalry in Sox prospect history other than me and you.
I was going to say, really?
I said other than
we hate each other. I know. You led me on well with that one. All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for downloading. We hope you enjoyed. Thank you to those who are supporting us in the SoxProspects.com donation drive. which runs through the end of the month. We have half a month left. I think we're at like 80% of our goal. So help us get across the finish line. You can go to soxprospects.com/donate. You can also support us at patreon.com/soxprospects. In this episode, we want to shout out our next set of Patreon supporters at the $5 level. That's Matthew Levine, Zachary Mancini, Jay Harrington, Josh Ball, Tom Kutzer, James Van Hoff, Deb Kendall, Gerardo Iantosca, Kyle C., and Tyler Woodrow. Thank you all for your support there. For our intro and outro music, we want to thank the Ludlow Thieves. Follow us on social media. You can follow the website at Sox Prospects. Follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. And follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. I think that will do it for this episode. We'll be back with more of the best coverage of the Red Sox organization, its draft, and the players in it soon. So keep your ears to the feet. Thanks for listening, y'all. Be back soon.